For
how do
sure.
you start your process? When it comes down, you have a lot of animation influences. And
Mhm.
you do have a lot of comic book influences, of course. But like, how
Mhm.
do you start your thought process when you start laying out the page, especially when you're experimenting with
Yeah.
panels and everything like that too?
So I'll start with my writing process then. So
Hmm.
obviously, like I have these characters in mind, and I draw them in my sketchbooks. I do like little spot illustrations of them. I then, when I script, I don't type full script because I get bored personally. Like I can't sit down and type because I also repeat myself. And what's the point of repeating visuals that you're writing down when you're going to draw them? And I feel like if you do that too much, you're gonna keep making stale panels. So what I
Oh,
do is I learned this method from Jim Rugg.
oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, he what he does is when he writes his stuff, he learned this from a creative writing class that to create like this when he's stuck like with an image in his head of the story, he will write that one image down on a note card, and he'll get a bunch of other note cards and start like writing the events that follow after that event and before. So then he creates this
Mm.
timeline of the story, and then it helps him figure out, okay, so this is the story, I can maybe move this here, move this back here, and it's just this timeline that he creates, and then he starts creating the story. In my case, like it doesn't necessarily happen in the middle, but I do script with note cards because I can move a beat here and then I can move another beat here, and then I can start comfortably thumbnailing, and then that's when I try to like not commit to it because it still stays kind of organic because I'm not going to pages yet, but then I start thumbnailing, adjusting dialogue, moving some pieces here and there. And even when I start actually drawing a page, sometimes a layout will change slightly because David Mazzucchelli said to keep your process as organic as possible if you're a cartoonist, because like in writing class, they tell you to not get too precious or attached to what you create and to
Yeah.
not be afraid of killing your darlings. So sometimes I'll straight up remove a panel, or I will move a panel in a better place, or redesign the whole page, or at least half a tier of the page if need be,
Mm.
if that's what the story is asking me to do. Because like I think too many like creators probably like ignore their channel out of maybe ego, and I attribute that more
Yeah.
to like straight up writers. But you need to, when you're creating, you need to serve the story and let
Mhm.
ego go, let your vision go, or at least what you thought was your vision go, and commit to the reality that is on the paper in front of you.
Yeah, dude, I mean, that's great stuff to like know and realize at this point too. I love how many like name references you've been dropping this whole time because
Yeah,
being,
I'm a
someone
student.
of like your caliber and just knowing your craft and knowing like people of your craft to be studying,
I'm
that's
a
what's
student, man.
exciting,
I'm a student for life.
And that's where you got to be as a creator.
Yeah.
You really, I feel the same exact way. Like I'm never not learning about comics or making comics, and I
Yeah.
think that's the funnest thing about make doing the show is that I am consistently having conversations where I'm just learning about comics. And when I'm going back to my craft and digging through stuff, it's just constant studying. You have an endless supply of things to like go through, and you're never probably going to get through it all, which is heartbreaking in a sense. But
Yeah.
like knowing like that mindset and keeping that student mindset, I feel is like where a lot of indie creators have the longest rate of success, because if you don't stop learning and pushing yourself and challenging things, then you're challenging your mindset, like you're probably going to get stale. And it sounds like that's how you're staying fresh with that. So how do when you're working on your actual, like when you're going to the page, you have it kind of thought out in your head, you have the script going on, what are you doing to attack this panel creation and your beats in your story? What are you
Yeah.
thinking about, like story structure and stuff like that? I know some people really take that heavy, but it
Yeah.
sounds like you might with how you're rearranging some of your story with the note cards and everything.
Not like traditional story structure. I mean, yes, there's a beginning, middle, and end, but I kind
Mhm.
of like pacing my stuff. It's hard to describe. Um, like it's like, yes, I think of like an issue's length has a beginning, middle, end. But what I'm doing is like I'm kind of curating my comic book like a Saturday morning cartoon, where like how
Mhm.
like in some shows they'll have like two stories in one episode and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Issue one has like three short stories. This issue two I'm working on has a main feature that's 26 pages and a follow up short story that's 4 pages. I kind of think of obviously like the beginning and middle and end of that, but when I watch like the best of Saturday morning cartoons that do that, they are giving you these small character moments that like audience members can probably ignore. but shouldn't, because you're establishing things that can then pay off later. And I'm building up to a main storyline that I'm getting to that has been rattling in my head for a long time. And that's kind of how I think about it, is like each of these individual stories are going to build up to the thing I'm trying to get to, if that makes sense. And also a
Dude, yeah,
big thing for me
honestly,
is like
yes. Yeah.
composition as well.
Nice. Dude, yeah, I have the same exact mindset. I've kind of briefly talked about it before, but I'm doing this series called Fake Your Death. And the way I'm organizing it is that it's about four main characters, but I'm doing individual short stories with those characters to kind of develop the world in my head and understand them a bit
Mhm.
more before taking on this big issue one. And once I
Yeah.
started doing that with all of like our anthologies we published with Apollo, I've been doing anthology short pieces to understand the world, and so anywhere from
Mm.
2 to like, 4 pages, 6 pages. That way I'm building that world, building those characters, and having stories in that universe come out while I
Yeah.
build up to the issue 1, like in issue 2 story, So
Yeah.
building it small and like letting it kind of flesh out your world more and more. I mean, dude,
Mm.
that's perfect practice on just
Yeah.
storytelling 101. Like I
Yeah.
think that's probably what's advancing you so quickly to start small and get big at
Yeah.
that point.
And like I think like I face this a lot because I'm a college student, and I run with like other freshman artists, and like they're not like I have a couple of friends, and I'm not gonna name names just out of professionalism,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah,
like
of course.
they're so afraid to finally tackle their story, and I'm just like, guys, like start small and
Yeah.
make pages. If you keep confining yourself to this big thing you have in your head, you're never going to start. And
Mhm.
that is actually worse than making a quote unquote like not good comic book. Like you're better off taking a risk and maybe making a comic that kind of has some wonkiness here and there, and then finally getting the
Yeah.
ball rolling and then cleaning up your craft as you go, than just not starting at all.
Mhm.
Like I think that
No.
to me is like worse. Like not starting at all is worse than making a quote unquote bad comic.
Dude, yeah, because like what is a bad comic at that point? Especially as indie creators, like how do we define a bad comic? You
Yeah.
have to hit a mark like really offbeat for us to consider something bad. I think so many, and I think a lot of people don't realize this either, especially early creators, is
Yeah.
that they're trying to either do something big, like their big opus story that they've been focusing
Yeah.
on forever, or they're just trying to do this giant project, like you're saying. But it's like, no matter what you make and what we're doing, people are going to love it and they're going to admire it and they're going to support it because those creators who are making comics and those of us who have like put a couple things out, like we know how difficult it is, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you do, we just like seeing a finished product that you could go out there and show. And if more creators just understood that and thought about that and just realized like it's hard, we all know it's hard, but just finish your story and put it out.
Yeah.
you know, don't worry about the quality. The quality could be, good, bad, that's judgmental, that's like,
Yeah.
up to the reader and but learn
Mhm.
from it then. If you felt
Mhm.
like you made a bad comic, a quote unquote bad comic, like
Yeah.
make your next one better, challenge yourself,
Yeah.
keep pushing yourself. But you
Yeah.
got to know the process and know how difficult it was to put out that one issue to before you could be like, okay, I know how to make this better now. Like
Because they're just growing
we all
pains at
grow.
the end of the day.
Yeah. Dude, total growing pains. And we look at these books that are manufactured by these big, companies, and they
Yeah.
have this pristine format, this storytelling, and we just expect that whatever we put out needs to be on that caliber and level. It's like, no, 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 go down a couple notches and then look at this other array of comics that are totally different, like indie books and other different publications, and you'll realize like just finish it and put it out. I'm reading this fun book right now. It's called Henry and Glenn. It's about
Oh, sweet.
Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig. It's like a fun romance story between the two because they're both punk legends. And it's one of those things where it has a very big array of different like art styles. And all of them. Oh, here's a fun like Mike Mangola like homage to it too. But like, dude,
Oh,
none of
sweet.
these are
Cool.
right. Yeah.
They're from Wake the
And
Devil. Yeah.
oh, sick. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love that
Dude, there's
story
some
art.
like art styles that like I don't agree with, but that doesn't make it bad. It's just
Yeah.
different. And you got
Yeah.
to play with that different art. Your art style, very different. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's bad, and you're growing. And so it's hard to say that this is amazing because I want to see what you're doing in a year. I want to see the
I
next,
appreciate it.
stuff of Frankie because like I'm sure you're evolving with
I do
every
too.
single page you work on.
Yeah. Dude, like
But
this next issue, I'm gonna have my first published splash page, and like I for issue one, I didn't want to have any because like I feel like there's so many people that kind of get lost in like making splashes that they kind of get a little lazy. So like this
Mhm.
next issue is gonna be my first published splash page, and like that alone like gets me excited. But also like more story ideas are formulating because like when I created issue one, I kind of didn't know where it was going till I made the final short story, and then everything kind of clicked. And then this big story that has kind of been in me, but I didn't know the details, is starting to finally like rear its head. And then working on issue two, my ideas for 3 and 4 are starting to formulate. So I have a notebook, and I'm creating a little bit of a timeline, and it's building and building. I'm just like I'm excited to read the next issues of Frankie. You know, I might be a little biased, but I think you have to be excited about what you're making.
With Comix will spread.